Sintiche, Sintaich, Sintike, Sintiki, and Judeas. They couldn't get along. I mean, that was, if you look at the church, Paul said this at the beginning, I always thank God for you. And I always come to the Lord in prayer for you because of this and that and this and that. So many things I commended the church for. And when you move, forward to the book of Revelation, you find that Jesus wrote to 7 churches. And each one of the church, right? He would give his commendation, words of commendation. Did good in this area. You're so good at this. But there's always a however. There's always a, what do you call that? Adversative conjunction is what they call it in grammar, right? Here's a good thing, but here's the bad thing. It's always like that. And you start with this, start looking at this story. There was not even a church yet. We're not in the book of Acts here. We're in the Gospel of John. This was the latter part of Jesus' ministry. He was about to die. He was about to be betrayed and arrested. And you find 2 disciples with a very particular kind of wish or desire, right? They want to be in a prominent seat. And here you find lessons. When you look at the story, what was the involvement of other people in this, and then James and John, and how did the disciples react? Oh, you find like a picture of this is actually what is so common in a lot of churches. You know that thousands of churches close their doors in America, right? You know that so many pastors resign, every week by the hundreds. I'm not talking about 20 pastors resign this week. No, I'm talking about hundreds of pastors resigning every week, right? Why is that? Why is that? Well, some of the problems with pride. That's the number one thing I see here. Number 2, some of the problems with people. Number 3, some of the problems with perception, how they perceive things. And then number 4, I see here in the story, some of the problems with not only their perspective or their perception, but their priorities. All right? So I would like to take some time and look at these issues among the disciples and see how that among Christ's followers, among them, we're not even talking about a church, there were already problems. So in the preceding verses, for the third time, Jesus revealed to his apostles that he was going to die. He was laying out his plan. He was going to go to the cross. And in Luke chapter 18, verse 34, they didn't understand any of this. Anytime Jesus would talk about his death, none of them would get it. As a matter of fact, Peter strongly opposed it. And that's the time when Jesus said, "Get behind me." And he called him what? See? Because he was opposed to the idea that Jesus was going to die. And so here, after this tragic news, some of the Jesus' disciples, they responded and they have some great concerns. And when you look at this chapter, the concern was not about Jesus. The concern was not about the future generation. The concern was about themselves. Remember, Peter approached Jesus one day and he asked, "Lord, we left the boats, we left our nets, we left our ambition, our calling, our profession of fishing. So what's there for us? What's there for me?" Right? It's like we abandoned our ambition. I'm following you now. So do I have a retirement here? Do I have benefits here? So what about my family? If I die, will there be a memorial plan for me? Will somebody buy me a casket? Or what's going to happen, Lord? So it's all about concern for the self and the future. So number 1, I see here, verse 20, there's often a problem of pride. The pride problem. Verse 20, then came to him the mother of Zebedee's children with their sons, worshiping him. That's good. That's not a problem, right? And desiring a certain thing of him. So what is it? Verse 21. And he said unto her, Jesus said unto her, "What wilt thou?" She says unto him, "Grant that these my 2 sons may sit, the one on the right, right hand and the other on the left in thy kingdom. Now, let's consider for a moment, right, those involved in this plea to Jesus. So who was involved? James, who else? John, and then there's, right, Salome, right? So these two men are part of Jesus' inner circle. Who are the inner circle? When I say inner circle, what do we mean by that? These were the a small number of apostles among the 12 that seemed to have a special spot, in Jesus' heart. And Jesus gave more time in dealing with them, and teaching them, and talking to them, and helping them grow. Who are those three? Peter, James, and John. And notice, if you look forward to the gospel, from the gospel to the book of Acts, right? What roles did they play? Peter became the greatest evangelist in the New Testament. Okay? At least, when the first church was formed. 3,000 souls saved, 5,000 souls. Every time he preached, it seemed to be like thousands of people getting saved. That's Peter. The apostle who denied him. And the apostle who so cowardly deserted him. But now he was revived. Jesus asked him, do you love me more than these? Fishing and everything. And then he for three times he was asked a question. And then finally he said, Lord, you know everything. You know that I love you. And so he was given a command, feed my lamb, feed my sheep. You need to say, you're going to have to go and proclaim the word, go and teach, my people. And Peter was used that way. What about James? What role did he play in the New Testament church? Remember James? He became the pastor of the first church in Jerusalem. Okay? What about John? Oh, John played a big role. Right? But among the 12, John was the one who did not die because of persecution. In a way, his head was not cut. He was not crucified. They didn't kill him. He died a natural death. And they believe at age 90. He was exiled though because of persecution. He was exiled in the island of Patmos and ended up writing 5 books. The Gospel of John. Is it really 5? 5? Oh, okay. So the Gospel of John, 1st, 2nd, 3rd John, and Revelation. So there's 5. Right? Why do you hesitate to answer? There's 5 books that he wrote. And the last book, is prophecy. That's the last book of the Bible, book of Revelation. So each one of them played a very important role. So that means, Jesus spent time with them, but we see the result. What about Bartholomew? What happened to him? What about Judas Thaddeus? What about whatever happened to Andrew after that? So many names that you can throw in there, you don't know what happened. But when you look at the outside source, like history, you hear what happened to them and how they died. But what they did for the ministry, we don't know. But here in this case, you find 2 men and a mother, right? So, they played a special role, and they have special, like I said, favor, if you may, or a special time with Jesus. Some people would think that they're Jesus' favorites. So Jesus played favoritism. Well, it seemed that way because he spent more time with them than any of the apostles. Okay? But he's always correct. So now they, along with Peter, have experienced things that others did not get to see. Like, for example, the Transfiguration. Who were there during Transfiguration? Peter, James, and John. And many other instances in which only Peter, James, and John were there. Right? Now, Salome, what about her? She was a faithful follower of Christ as well. She was among the first at the tomb on the resurrection morning. So you have this whole character here. They come with what on the surface may seem like an honorable reason or motive or request. That is to sit on either side of Jesus in his kingdom. Alright? So that was a request. Now, in the previous chapter, if you go to Matthew chapter 19 and verse 28, you will understand that here's what Jesus promised. Here's what he said. Verily I say unto you, that you will follow me. In the generation when the Son of Man shall sit on the throne of his glory, you shall sit upon 12 thrones, judging the 12 tribes of Israel. So they have this in the previous chapter.